why ethics is so important. Everybody knows that's what we're interested in. And you also don't need to really know too much about where the word comes from, but it just starts to give us a feeling for why it's there. So, covers the following dilemmas: how to live a good life, our rights, responsibilities, and the language of right and wrong. And we're going to see persistently in the next couple of slides right and wrong. That's the key here. That's what we're looking at, and that's pretty obvious to everybody. A system of conduct or behavior, moral principles. And I think it's important to define ethics a little bit to start with, so that everybody's ensured they're on the same page. They're standards by which behaviors are evaluated for their morality, their rightness or wrongness. And I had to go to the dictionary to make sure that what I thought was ethical and what it meant was there when I made this presentation, because it's very easy to presume that we just know, because I am, of course, ethical like everybody else who's in the horse training world. There's a lot of talk about morals when you start getting into ethics, and I thought it was interesting just to look at what a moral is, relating to character of human behavior, particularly regards right and wrong. Principles. So now we've started with ethics, we go to morals, now we're on to principles. Wow. Okay. Virtues, moral principles, a particular system of moral principles. Principles concerning the distinction between right or wrong, good or bad behavior. You see, we're back to this right and wrong, good and bad stuff going on again. And I think the horse world is full of everybody judging one person as good and the other person as wrong, or themselves as good and every other trainer as wrong, and vice versa. Very seldom do you meet people who judge themselves as wrong and everybody else as good. Our problem is, once we start getting past just this gut feeling, we start to use logic to try and understand what's actually happening in terms of our moral reasoning. We think it through. That's where we get into internet debates about this is right and that's wrong, and clubs start to form about their moral guidance on different topics and different methods, which then, of course, clash with other clubs who've got slightly different moral ethics. But what's the key to me, and this leads to principles. Principles become the key to establishing your ethics. Fundamental truth, a proposition that serves as a foundation for the system of belief or behavior, or for a chain of reasoning. These principles that you have about behavior, about how a horse should be treated, about how anyone should be treated if you want to stretch it outside the horse world, becomes a law or a rule that has to be, something that's followed. Now, we all have principles. We all use principles, just most of us never really define them really closely. So it would seem ethics is a system of thought we use for making decisions about right and wrong. And it's that system of thought that I want to just focus on for a moment, to just unravel some of this journey that we take when we're deciding whether something's ethical or not. So what is the difference between ethics, morals, and principles? Well, principles motivate, morals and ethics restrict. That's to say, your principles allow you to grow things. They allow you to create ways of working. They allow you to define your behavior and activate that behavior. Generally, morals and ethics restrict your behavior. What's right, what's wrong, they kind of limit what we do when we fall outside our ethical approach. Our principles provide us with long-term sustainable solutions. They're a guide, a compass. You see, I put a compass there. You know, if you've got the right principles in place, and this is absolutely fundamentally key to training equines, get the right principles in place, define your principles. You will then be able to know if what you're being asked to do is clashing with your principles. You'll know where the discomfort comes from when somebody says you should do it like this, and you just have that twinge that actually that's not quite right. It comes from your principles and how you've established them. So here's experiment 2. What I'd like you to do is have a go at writing down your guiding principles for working with equines or spending time with equines or just being with your equines. But in relation to equines, I want to give you 2.5 minutes to write down your principles. Now, you're going to take a lot longer than 2.5 minutes over the next few weeks to really define them. And I think it's so important to get your principles down on paper. So if you've got this time now, just start writing, see what we come up with. On your marks, get set, go. You can almost hear those cogs whirring around the world as you're trying to really define. Some of you, be interesting to know, just as you're going through this, and you still got a minute or so to go, I'd be interested for you to just type in the sidebar at some point there. Just tell me whether you found writing your principles down really easy or more of a challenge. Yeah, I kind of like that video. It is a challenge to verbalize it. We know them, but like so many things, they're not supposed to be in our head. If you get them out, if you get them on paper, they become concrete. And then we start to be able to work with it. We'd be able to see it. We can define it. And let's see. Most of you are kind of there. And I'd also be interested to know how many of you have actually done it before, to write your principles down. Yeah, I can see some of you saying this is the first time you've ever tried to write your goals down. Sorry, write your principles down. We've written goals. We're taught to do all these things. But principles, yeah. We get a little bit money. I guess maybe I've given you plenty of time now. And as a starting point, let me show you some of mine so you got some sort of idea of where you might, where I come from. So these have been defined for me over the last 17 years. And I have to say that having them having them written down has made me be able to actually walk the talk more, you know. And that bottom one about the horse's needs always come first, it comes back to me. It comes back to me when I'm training, it comes back to me when I'm teaching, it comes back to me when I'm doing a demonstration, it comes back to me when I'm writing, because I know that I have to check in with that all the time. The others come in different ways when you're training, when you're working. So I think, I would really recommend that if you want to go on and become more able to walk the talk, get your principles down, get them solid, get them on the fridge, get them on your stable tack room door, just until they become so ingrained. And the reason you'll see that these principles are so important is it allows you to judge your own behavior against your predefined principles, because human beings are great at just changing what we do to fit the situation and then bending our principles. Okay, Lorraine, I'll read them out. So, work with honesty. Don't compromise beliefs to make money or gain clients. Don't compete or follow. Walk my own path. Safety and balance always. Small steps ensure safe success. Always think with a horse's brain. That's a big one for me. Big one. To guide and work with rather than to demand and teach. No ego. It's not about me. It's always about the horse. It's always about you. It doesn't matter what I can do. When I've gone home tomorrow, you're doing it on your own, and that's really important. Don't judge others. Let them walk their own path. Do no harm. And that major guiding principle, the horse needs, always comes first. But where does this take us? Where does having these principles take us? Well, the problem with ethics is many people want there to be a single right answer to ethical questions, especially if you're in a membership of a club. I'm just going to back up because there's an interesting question there from Izzy. Can we do harm by not judging others? As we'll see when we start to look at where the principles come from, it depends on the situation. These principles are for me when I'm teaching, when I'm trying to help other people with horses and do those sorts of things. And I've really found that when I judge and make a judgment on somebody, I'm just going to push against them and they're going to push back. However, there are other areas in my life where making a judgment about something or someone is probably going to happen. So it can be very situational. I hope that answers that for you, Izzy. Sorry, back to the problem with ethics. We know this. You want it to be. The human brain is wired to find patterns. It's wired to go, this is how it works. I don't want ambiguity. I want to know that's the pattern. Right, wrong, easy, go home and go to sleep. Don't have to worry about it. Now, what I want you to do here, because I know you know about ethics. This is going to be a challenge for maybe a couple of you if you're not connected to your own laptop or whatever, but try this for me. Can you log on to YouTube? And when you've gone to YouTube, in that lovely search bar, bear with me, put in horse training. I know it's a terrifying experience. Sorry, okay, so I want you to go onto YouTube, if you can do that without losing me, and search for horse training. You can search for anything that there's going to come a whole series of clips down the side. Now, what I want you to do, and this is just a simple test, and I'll explain the experiment afterwards. I want you to pick 3 clips. And all I want you to do is on the first clip that you've chosen, watch it for 10 seconds, pause it, and make a decision about whether it's ethical or whether it's not. Then just run it on again for about another 20-30 seconds. If it's one of those clips that has a long intro and stuff like that, still make your judgment. Just watch it and then just check whether what you said in that first 10 seconds about whether it's ethical or not is still there after 30 seconds. And this is just a 10-second judgment. Then do the same for the next clip and the third clip. Should take us a couple of minutes just to find those clips. Don't get too into them. Don't disappear and start watching clips on YouTube. But I just want to get an idea that you actually know what's ethical in a few seconds. If it takes ages to get started and you've got that kind of long intro, make your judgment anyway. Yeah, that's YouTube. Get rid of that ad, skip that ad, do that sort of thing. We got a couple of minutes here. There's no rush. I just want you to do this 10-second experiment. Making your judgment in the first 10 seconds. Then you're going to watch it for a few more seconds and see whether it's still there, and just whether you made that correct judgment in the first 10 seconds. Then pick another one. Okay, so what should be there, what you should be starting to get is that first 10-second feeling of whether what you're seeing is ethical or what's not. And okay, if you're getting a really long intro, that just is, just skip it. Do another one. Just try it. The whole point of this 10-second experiment is the science is this. They did an experiment with teachers, university professors, and they had people who'd had them for a whole year just rate them, and they rated them. And then what they did was they take a whole load of other students who'd never met this professor or worked with them, and they actually asked those people to rate them watching just a 1-minute video clip. The strange thing was that there was the 95% accuracy in the judgment from the people who had that professor for the year as the people who just watched a 1-minute video clip. They then did this experiment again, and they took just 10 seconds, and they found that it was almost identical. Almost 10 seconds is enough if you're aware of your own principles to make a decision about things, and that's what generally happens, you know. And we have to listen to our gut feel. We have to listen to our gut feel. That's not to say that we have to judge everybody in 10 minutes, because I just said that one of the things I don't want to do is judge everybody. but you do have to listen to your gut feel if you're going to protect you and your horse from all manner of natural horsemanship and trainers that are out there. And you're absolutely right, Sophia, when you're saying that, Becky, that there's a lot of natural horsemanship clips there. Of course, and there's a question there about what's going on and why there are so many of those. So we could choose any topic. I just happened to choose one like that. You could put in classical dressage or anything you wanted, and you can do that later and you'll find the same thing will happen. But why do people see things differently? Now, this is the interesting bit, and it's because we all use different assessment criteria. Now, let's imagine, I want you to just keep in the back of your mind as we go through these next 5 criteria, a difficult to lead horse, donkey or mule, your preference, and that walks into the handler space, kicks out when you try to pick up his feet and walks off when you ask him to wait. Okay, now we're going to look at these different approaches to ethics, and you'll start to see why there are so many different versions of what's right and what's wrong. We've got the utilitarian approach, which is to analyze the issue using a utilitarian approach. We first identify the various courses of action available to us. Second, we ask who will be affected by the action. And third, we choose the action that will produce the greatest benefits and the least harm. The ethical action is the one that provides the greatest good to the greatest number. So people often use that approach, and if we used it with this animal that we're talking about here, someone could use negative reinforcement or positive reinforcement or punishment, and say they were trying to educate the horse for their own good. Because the shape of behavior or it was flooding was a better approach, but the trainer will make a judgment on what's best because the trainer stayed safe. And we start to look at this, and you'll see people start to judge things on this type of approach. And we can ask these questions. Has the horse progressed? Is it calm, relaxed, shut down, fearful? Does it work for all horses or only some? The next step that we're probably going to look at is the rights approach. People have dignity based on their ability to choose freely what they do with their lives, and they have a fundamental moral right to have these choices respected. What we're seeing is many horse owners and handlers are applying these moral rights to equines. We're saying horses are not objects to be manipulated. It's a violation of horses' dignity to use horses in the ways that they don't freely choose. Well, if you take that approach, then clearly you're going to have a different idea of what's ethical. Does the action respect those moral rights of horse and the people involved? So if we take that horse situation again, we'll be asking questions. Did the horse have a real choice? Or was it just a pretend one? Did the trainer listen to the animal with concerns for the situation? Was the spirit of the animal broken or damaged? Was the animal forced to comply? Was the training degrading? Was training for the benefit of the animal? If you ask those questions on what you see, you're going to get a different idea whether something's ethical or not. We could use the common good approach, where this originated, has been really popular for about 3,000 years. It assumes that society comprising of individuals whose own good is inextricably linked to the good of the community. And we're talking about maybe methods here. Groups of people who are very much determined to look at themselves, their body of work, and how that relates to horses. So we might ask questions like, did the horse take into account the common good of the trainer, owner, animal, and other people, or was it the good of the people, not for the good of the animal? Was it harsh training justified by you have to make the horse safe? If I didn't do this, someone could get injured. We could go on to the virtue approach. You know, and all of these steps are classically defined. They're all there. You don't have to know that. You know them already. The key thing here is that we actually just think about them, and it makes you understand why people come at things with different reasoning for what they do. So the virtues, dealing with an ethical problem using a virtue approach, we might ask, what kind of person should I be? What will promote the development of the character within myself and my community? And there's a lot of horse people out there that we all know, and I guess most of you are these people who are going to ask, the horses are the best teachers. So I'm going to develop myself in order to be better for the horse. That'd be more of a virtue approach. It develops the idea of good actions by looking at the way virtuous people express themselves. No? And I hope you're just getting a sense of this. I'm not trying to get you to remember every different type of ethical approach, but you begin to realize why there are so many different opinions on what's right and what's wrong. So with our virtue approach, did the trainer act in the following ways and demonstrate these virtues? Honesty, courage, compassion, generosity, integrity, fairness, self-control, and empathy. Did the trainer demonstrate ego-centered behavior? Was it all about them, about the horse? No? And if you become familiar with these principles and these virtues, these approaches, what you can do is you can start to see where decisions are being made, and you can start to choose how you might make decisions about different trainers and different situations with different methods. Finally, we've got a fairness and justice approach. This is a real common one amongst the horse training. How fair is an action? Does it treat everybody in the same way, or does it show favoritism and discrimination? Both favoritism and discrimination are unjust and wrong. They'll justify their methods. Train all my horses this way. It's got to be a 50-50 relationship. Did the trainer act in proportion to the animal's behavior, or were the consequences disproportionate to their behavior? Did they make discriminations based on breeds, colour? That chestnut thing, that just comes out every single time. It's a moody mare, you know. We can use all sorts of things to justify, rather than just being fair across the whole board. And all of these become either absolute or situational. Some people think there are such universal rules that apply to everybody, horses all the time. They don't mix. You know, situational is much more powerful because it rejects prescriptive rules and argues that individual ethical decisions should be made according to the unique situation. And I think that's much more powerful for us. We see so much in the horse world of people having this moral absolutism where they just go, that's what's right and what's wrong, and regardless, and they never look at the fact that things change a little bit. Situations, people, what's right and what's wrong. And you know, for me, I started being an ethical trainer about 6 months ago, and started being a trainer that just tried really hard to do the right thing in the right situation. And it allows you to actually work with individual horses, their nature and individual owners, individual situations. There's an infinite range there, and if you don't have some situational ethics, you're going to struggle to really match every problem that you encounter. So, making the ethical choice for yourself. 5 questions to ask based on those 5 things that we've just done. You've got to make a decision about horses, about what to do, what type of training to use, what type of welfare or husbandry to take on board. Get these 5 questions underway, and you start to begin to Clarify and feel for yourself what the right ethical decision is. You can ask the utilitarian approach, which option will produce the most good and do the least harm? Which option best respects the rights of all who have a stake? So for me as a trainer, that's about me staying safe, but it's about the owner when I'm gone. It's about the horse at that moment. That's a rights approach. Which option treats equines equally or proportionately? It's a justice approach. Which option best serves both human and horse, not just me or them? It's a common good approach. Which option leads me to act as the sort of person I want to be? I really like that virtue approach. Yeah, got to agree with Caroline that there are times again, and that's the situational approach where we do have hard rules and limits. But that's situational. It doesn't mean to say that they're all totally flexible, but where we find ourselves in each moment, if we just stick to being completely rigid, we may not be in the best position to make the best decision for that, or best position to make the best decision for that horse. But that's a much harder approach. You see, I'm a human. I want a pattern that tells me how to make the right decision every single time without having to think. Whoa. So my approach to ethics, you got to do a lot of listening first. You got to find out about the individual horse. You got to find out about the individual owner. You got to find out about the individual situation. You know, it doesn't matter what I can do. It really is about what people can do themselves once I'm not there. You know, the horse has to come first. Remember, that was my guiding principle. So I've got to make that decision. And that means that sometimes I'm going to have to upset somebody because I'm going to say, actually, this isn't right for your horse. Now, the way I say that or the way I present that is sometimes tricky, but it has to happen. It has to come in there if I'm going to walk away knowing that I followed my principles. How I might do it, the compromises in terms of I might go and visit an owner who is using a pressure halter or a rope halter. Now, those things for me are something that I wouldn't personally choose to use. They're not in my principles. They're not necessary. However, I understand that an owner may not have confidence. They may have had an accident. They may have been in a position whereby those tools have given them confidence to be able to at least handle their horse. My job isn't to go and criticize and say that's not what you should do because this is my ethics, this is my rules. It's to say, okay, let's talk about why you use this pressure halter, why you use this rope halter. Is there a better way? What else could we do? How do we build your confidence so that you could try using a flat head collar that produces less pressure on your animal's head? You know, so it becomes situational, and it becomes about me trying to do the best thing for that horse, not walking away and not saying anything. That doesn't help, but challenging those points. But again, without judging. It's your horse, it's your purse, you're an individual in that situation. But my job as a trainer is to ask the questions that get you to challenge yourself and be able to develop your skills and this virtue approach so that you can become the sort of horse trainer that you want to be. You don't want to be a clone, and so many methods have a prescriptive position where they tell you exactly what to do, and you're supposed to follow those points so that you can become a clone of the guru. And what we actually want is you to be yourself, the best trainer you can be, to be an individual, to develop your own skills. So for me, being ethical isn't that difficult because I just put the horse first, and everything else from that I try to work with supporting the owner, the situation and the environment. I'm doing the best in any situation that I possibly can, and that means being prepared to walk away. And there's a great question there from Vicky. Would you say a rope halter is always bad? And this is the challenge, to be ethical. Would I say they're bad? Are they bad? It depends on the hands that hold them. But we all know that. Is there something better? Yeah. Flat head collar, got to be better. It produces less pressure per square inch. Scientific fact, less pressure on the head. Do you have to work harder with it? Do you say never use a rope halter? Depends on the situation. What I say is if we always use a rope halter, if we always use a pressure halter and we never question why we're using it, and we never try to get lighter, we never try to move on to that next step to make it better, that worries me. Are they always bad? I don't know. What I do know is when on workshops and clinics, when I've actually put a pressure halter onto someone's head, and I have a little human pressure halter that fits nicely over the nose or the top lip, you pretty much find people really quickly don't like the idea of pressure halters and rope halters again, because of course for us we've got no reference point for it. We don't know what that's like, so we can define it, we can accept it, we can use any of those ethical approaches we've just discussed to justify those things. My key is to go, let's ask, let's try. What happens if we do something different and find out what we've got? I had an owner this week, a couple of emails. She'd been in a pressure halter for years. We discussed lots of sorts of stuff. She took it off. She discovered she didn't need it at all. There was just something that was getting in the way of communication, but she'd come to rely on it. So making the ethical choice on trainers, that's one of the hardest things, you know. All us trainers are out there saying that we're ethical. You never met a trainer who claimed not to be ethical. Everybody's got good stuff and bad stuff, but how do you make an ethical choice? And here's the 11 things that I would say you need to be doing or asking. And let's just work through them. So first off, make sure you've defined your own principles. If you don't define your own principles really carefully, how are you going to measure somebody else's principles and whether they fit with yours? Absolutely key. We're kind of guessing in the dark until you've gotten concrete down on paper, but I'm hoping you're getting a sense for that now anyway. Plan ahead of time, make a choice and mentally test it. Okay, what is it that you actually want? What would you feel good about? What would you want to see? How would you feel in that situation? Watch the first 10 seconds of the trainer working and evaluate it. Gut feel. And that comes alongside that. Watch the trainer with the sound turned down. Do you understand what is happening? How do you feel? Because the human brain is predisposed to listen to words. So what will happen is you'll hear the words and you'll miss what's actually happening. Really common. Turn the sound off. Stop being influenced by the words. Try to be influenced by what you see and what you feel. Everybody who's tried this tells me, you know, that it's a real benefit to be able to see and feel it. But it's just because the human brain is predisposed to listen to those words and override our feelings and what we see because we listen to the words. Ask yourself, if you told someone you respect, or maybe even told a television audience, imagine yourself on a television program, you said, this is what I'm doing with this trainer and this is what I'm going to do with my horse, what would they say? You know, are they going to sit there? Fantastic. Do you feel uncomfortable about telling them? Considering all the available approaches, which best option addresses a situation? And you know, bear in mind there might not be just one approach. There might be a couple of you've got to work together with. But this is a thought process. This isn't a knee-jerk reaction when you choose a trainer, and we'll go on to that in a few minutes and ask a few of those questions. Do some research. Don't believe everything, but is there a common or consistent thread? You know, there's lots of good and lots of bad. Lots of people have got to say something about trainers, and lots of people are afraid to say anything bad about trainers for fear of getting sued or being attacked by other members of the community. So, but if there's a thread, if there's something that comes up a few times, you need to explore it. Be comfortable with it before you make a decision. Does the trainer implement their training with the greatest care and attention to all of those stakeholders? You know, is it about them, or can you just sit there and know that that horse, the owner, everybody's involved he's working with those concerns for that person? Make sure you sleep on it for at least a week and listen to your intuition. You know, really crucial when you're trying to make a choice on trainers and what to do. Go longer. It really shouldn't take you that long to get that feel, to intuition to go, yes. If you're asking the right questions and you're physically asking the right questions to make sure you've covered all the decisions and all the possibilities, your intuition, your subconscious will make the decision for you. But you have to stop thinking and start feeling and start listening to that sense of what's right and wrong for you and your horse. Be prepared to stop the trainer at any point when you are not happy with their work, or even when you're mildly concerned. Ask the trainer if they would mind this. Any trainer that you want working with your horse should be completely happy for you to stop them at any point, because they should be working with you, your comfort, the animal's comfort, and that's really important for them and for you. And if they show any worry that you might stop them or might feel uncomfortable, you're going to ask why. For me personally, that's a given on every type of workshop. Every time we work with a horse, the owner is in control. You can stop me instantly, and we can work on what we need to do to improve and move on. Finally, that number 11 there, you've gone through everything, you've done your decision. Work on how it turned out. What have you learned from it? And I meet so many trainers, they get sucked, so many owners, they get sucked into a trainer and they get tied in, and 2-3 months down the road they confess they knew it wasn't quite right, but they didn't like to speak up. And I think there's a real problem here, and it's about conflict. Most of us don't like conflict. Most of us perhaps feel that speaking up against the trainer or saying stop or I don't agree would be uncomfortable. Especially because the trainer, the expert, this knowledgeable person has got all this respect, and we're taught to respect that sort of position. And for us, who are we to challenge people to disagree, to kind of say, I'm really sorry, but I don't think we should be doing that. It's a really uncomfortable position, especially if you're British. We'll go to a restaurant, have a bad meal, the waiter will come out and say, how's your meal? We'll go, yeah, not too bad, thank you. Because we don't like the conflict. But this is your horse. This is your equine that we're talking about here. And it's really important to say no. Because that's where the consistency, that's where the strength comes from. You have the right, you have the skill. You know your horse better than anybody else in the world. You're its expert. You are its safety blanket to protect it from the outside. And there are different ways to say, no. If you're watching a demonstration, yeah, you can get up and leave. I agree. If you're actually got someone working with your horse, before you ever let them touch it, make sure in your mind you've run through what will happen if you need to say no and be ready to do it. So you've mentally rehearsed that feeling of, that's not right, I don't like it, I'm really sorry, but I need you to stop right now. Have the phrase prepared, get yourself ready. Hopefully you'll never have to use it and everything will be fine because you've used these other questions to make this ethical choice. But if you haven't, you at least get that opportunity to say it, and that's about preparation. I think if you have got it wrong in the past, the horse isn't necessarily going to judge you. And they might judge the other person. They're not going to look at you and go, oh, you make a bad choice of trainers. They are going to struggle and have a time delay to get back on track. And I think that you don't need to beat yourself up. What happened in the past happens in the past. You need to be interested in what happens now and what happens going forward with your decisions about training. And the key thing here is, remember, think of it as interviewing a trainer for a very important job. Actually, it's an extraordinarily important job. It's like asking a psychologist to come into your house and not only work with you, but work with some of the most important people in your family. Are you just going to let anybody do that? But we kind of tend to, with horse trainers, we take a little bit of advice from a couple of people. In my 16, 17 years, I think I've only ever had 2 people kind of interview me and ask these questions. And so if you think of getting involved with a trainer or a physiotherapist, a chiropractor, a dentist, whatever it is, treat it like an interview. We've all been to interviews. We know what's going on and those sorts of things. Ask them for those situational questions. So when you have to, when have you dealt with this type of situation and what was the approach you used and outcome? Could you give me an example what you might do if my horse kicked you? You know, and of course, it'd be pretty rare for a trainer to say, well, I'd just punch him right in the chin. That's not going to happen. But what you're looking for is you're looking for that sense, that feeling you're going to get. Is that true? Is it not true? What's going to happen? What do you feel is the role of the human in working with this type of problem? And just ask the right questions. Interrogate them. Again, we're worried about conflict. Don't be. You're interviewing someone you're about probably to give money to. You know? And so it's important that you're completely confident, because if you're not completely confident, you're not going to really get the best from the situation. Could I ask for some references, please? Now, of course, they're going to give you people, hopefully they give you they already know are going to give a good reference. But that's at least something. And they shouldn't hesitate. Yeah, of course we'll give you some references. Here we go. You're looking for the pauses, you're looking for the fear, you're looking for the bits they're hiding or any inconsistencies, anything that to you gives a problem. And that leads us to this aspect of the misunderstanding of the true nature of horses. You know, this is key for me, that if you understand the true nature of equines, it will allow you to make all the right decisions. You know, they are not dominant creatures that want to overpower us, be the leader, be aggressive, all of those sorts of things. They're adaptable, they're trainable, they're bigger than us, they're faster than us, they kick harder, they can run away, they can do all the stuff. They don't have to do a damn thing they don't want to, and yet they do. If you come at the principle that the horses are a fearful creature that wants to avoid confrontation, that actually submission is their true connection. They want to avoid fights. They want to avoid conflict. They want to be in a submissive situation so that they can avoid injury. That principle and understanding of the true nature, and I've got that video clip on YouTube about this fundamental error. If you haven't seen it, it develops that a little bit further, but it's really important for me. Once you get that, it guides your principles and everything on from that. If you think horses are capable of taking the mickey, being naughty, doing those sorts of things, then you're going to have a real problem with your principles and your ethics after that. I did want to mention this. Right back at the start, I asked you in slide 1 about what you thought about when you had your thumb up, and what was the difference when you had your finger up. The science says this: your body language will change your mindset. It's highly likely, if you had your thumb up, that you found it quite positive. You would find it quite easy to write things down. If you had your thumbs up, it would be quite an easy thing to write nice things about horses. However, those of you who had maybe your middle finger extended, I know somebody couldn't do that because it felt it was not right for them, which goes to show the whole point of what I'm just saying. But if you had that finger up, it perhaps changes your perception a little bit. And the classic experiment is that they give people in a controlled experiment these two options. They give them a paragraph about a gentleman behaving over a landlord who doesn't want to pay return a payment, and classically the people who have the thumbs up see him as a positive person, the people who have the fingers up see him as a kind of a negative bossy person. So our body language even influences our perception of people and how we act and see and change what we do. And it comes all the way through everything else, which is why it's so important to have this true nature of horses and equines in the right place, and to have the nature in the right place. There's a few questions that we perhaps haven't answered that you put up here, and I thought we'd better just make sure we covered that to be there. Do you strive to remain diplomatic when communicating with owners, even if your message isn't being heard and thus impacting on your sense of ethics? Yes, I do remain diplomatic, although over the years I've also learnt to be kind of humorous with, I hope, saying actually, if you try to force people, if you don't remain diplomatic, you shut off the learning opportunity and you lose the chance to make any difference, in which case you might as well go home. It doesn't impact on my sense of ethics. I just find a different way to work, or take a smaller step, or find a different way of explaining things, because it's about the horse. It's not about me. So if I feel uncomfortable, that's not really important. What's important is I do everything I possibly can to help that horse by putting things in a different way, and also understanding that owner's point of view, because maybe it's me that needs to figure something out or change or learn. So if I start being undiplomatic or not being sympathetic to the situation, maybe it's me that's going to actually miss the learning opportunity. Is horse riding horses ethical? Wow, massive question. Probably a whole webinar. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. Certainly, I know this. If you probably put a saddle on a fence and said it's up to you, do you want to put it on and go for a ride, they probably wouldn't choose. As a normal animal, no. As a domesticated creature, for me, if we've taken care of their needs, if we're sure there's no pain, if the tack fits, if we've got soft hands, if we're the right weight for that animal, if the animal's fit, if we've got the right environment for them, is riding unethical? No. If we do it badly, if we don't pay attention to the horse, is it ethical? No, it isn't. So it goes again with this situational situation. What bad English that is. It goes against the situation. And so yes, sometimes it's ethical for me, sometimes it isn't. How do I foster an ethical approach to training or cope with the attitudes of die-hard traditionalists? It's not about you, it's about the horse. And your message will come through if you keep working at it. It's about trying to not bend just to fit what people want, which comes back to one of my original principles about not following other people or gaining clients or earning money just by telling people what they want to hear. So that really depends on your principles and your attitudes to it. Is negative reinforcement bad and positive reinforcement always good? You know the answer to this already. Negative reinforcement isn't bad. It's bad if you use it too harshly. It's bad if you escalate the pressure. It's bad if you don't release the pressure in the right place. It's bad if you use it so much and so often the animal becomes nervous or shut down. If you use it correctly and use it lightly and you don't escalate the pressure and maintain the time, then it can be fantastic. If you use positive reinforcement really badly and you get the horse to be completely screwed up mentally because it's always looking for food and it's in your pockets, then it's a bad thing. If you use it correctly and it's a positive, it just changes. And that's why those ethical approaches are in there, to be able to understand and make those decisions. Is it ever possible to override a horse's instinct for fear and get him to trust you implicitly, especially under saddle? Yeah, well, 2 points. Certainly, it's possible to override the horse's instinct for fear. That's their amazing ability. That's their true nature. They're a fear animal designed to run away from everything, yet we can train them to stand in the middle of a riot or in the middle of a main road, being calm and relaxed, and getting to trust you implicitly. If you want to trust you implicitly, you've got to behave in a trustworthy way. You can't make a horse trust you. You can only be the sort of person a horse will trust. So yeah, for me, it is. It just depends on how long the journey is you want to take, and you can achieve anything you want with that. Trying to find the balance between allowing your equine the freedom against, I guess, controlling their needs and what they do. Yeah, that's a tough ethical decision, which I guess most of you would find most of the day. Balancing competition and welfare, that's about putting the horse first. That's about being prepared to walk away when you know it's not right for the horse. That's about going training for a competition for 3 months, 2 days before, knowing your horse isn't ready and you're not going to make him do it. That's just like getting to the show and knowing it's not the right day for your horse and walking away, despite what you've done, the efforts you put in, everything else. and going, it's not right for him today. That's how you balance between competition and welfare of the animal. If it's about money, if it's about force, if it's about all those things, it's just about winning, then we know the welfare of the animal's gone out of the window already. But when we're back to our ethical questions and stuff like that. There's a great question there. How do you be a person that a horse will trust? Well, trust is simply the ability to predict the behavior of another person or animal. And so for me, the only way to get trust is to be predictable, to be consistent. If you can be consistent in the way, because you've got your principles, because you've got your morals in place, then you certainly will be able to be in a better position to let your horse trust you. We're kind of right up to the time there of all these sorts of things. If you've got any final questions, if you've got any thoughts, if you've got a My Mood button after having spent an hour listening to me, that would be great to know. There's a couple of questions here, competition, ethics in competition, how ethical is any competition? It depends on how much you prepare the horse, and it's not the end result, it's always the journey that the horse has taken to get there. That's the important thing that I think people need to look at and they forget. Which trainers taught you? The horses. The horses, donkeys and mules are always the best teachers. I've also learned from every person I've ever worked with, rather than particular trainers as such. And the science of behavior, that's the key, that's the biggest trainer. The link for the YouTube video is, just go to YouTube, look up Ben Hart, Hart's Horsemanship, and it's the fundamental error. YouTube, or it's on the Facebook page there. I put it on a couple of days ago for something else. These new webinars that are coming up over the next couple of weeks, the first one's already on the Facebook page and on the website. You can find the details about that. The second one on the 5th of June there will be on the next couple of days. Yeah, they are. All the webinars that we're going to do are going to be available recorded and there for future, so that you can watch them if you're in different places in the world and come back and have a look. I just kind of say, if you have enjoyed it, if you got something out of it, tell me. That'd be great. But most of all, tell all your friends and put it on Facebook. Why not? And if you didn't like it and you didn't learn from it, then tell me so that I can learn more about how to get better and meet your expectations in the future. It's been my pleasure. I look forward to your feedback. There's going to be lots of them coming up over the next few months. So if you've got ideas or topics that you really want covered, let me know. Thank you very much indeed. And wherever you are in the world, have a fantastic day. Bye for now.